you this insane story. Guys, when I saw this, I couldn't believe it, but I'm glad. Cassie needs to be held accountable. I'm so sick of all of y'all painting Cassie as such a pure victim. Is she a victim? Yes. She was a victim at one point, as we clearly saw, of DV. But she's not a pure victim. Cassie was involved in the transportation for prostitution. It's plain as day, guys. She wanted some of them. We saw the evidence. The jury saw it. She wanted some of the freak offs. She picked out the escorts. And now some of the escorts, they're fighting back. They said, that 30 million's looking kind of good right now. Come here, Cassie. I want to talk to you for a second. So what happened? Well, Cassie and Diddy sued. Male escort claims Cassie gave him an STD. Not only that, but he also claims that she aborted their pregnancy. Wow. Guys, keep that same energy, please. If this were flipped and it was a Jane Doe and they said Diddy gave him STD, you guys would be like, oh man, again, I knew it. Throw him under the jail. Keep that same energy. Keep that same energy. Clayton Howard, one of the male escort prosecutors say Diddy hired, is dragging Diddy and Cassie to court. And he says Cassie gave him an STD and got an abortion after he got her pregnant. Yikes. Howard, who says he went by Dave when he was hired for the freak offs with Diddy and Cassie, makes the salacious claims in a new lawsuit obtained by TMZ. I want to see this lawsuit. The escort claims he contracted an STD from having intercourse with Cassie, and he says he impregnated her and she aborted the pregnancy without telling him. And he alleges she then continued to have unprotected intercourse with him. Oh boy. Howard is one of 7 male escorts federal prosecutors in Diddy's criminal case say were transported across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. Many of them Cassie picked. Many of them Cassie wanted. He claimed he was hired for freak offs with Diddy and Cassie starting in 2009. And he says for more than 5 years, they trafficked him for the purposes of commercial intercourse, using him as an entertainment to satisfy their adult fantasies and personal ambitions. Howard claims Diddy and Cassie drugged, manipulated, and traumatized him while they themselves engaged in toxic domestic abuse relationship that often became violent. Here we go. Let's talk about it.
He's sitting in a jail cell right now, and the judge denied him bail. And he could listen. He's not going to get life, and we know that was on the line.
Oh, and by the way, the government, they filed a letter. What's the government going to ask for? They're going to ask for 50 to 60 months or something like that. The sentencing guidelines, frankly, are 20 to 27. He was acquitted. The judge denied bail, but the judge specifically said, look, I have to because they're alleging it's a crime of violence. And the defense basically conceded the violence and said that this is a domestic violence case, except he's not being charged with domestic violence. He had a standard. The judge adhered to the standard. That doesn't mean that at sentencing, he's not going to do the right thing.
So what do you think he'll get? You sound like you're thinking like 3-4 years.
No, I think if there's any justice, he'll get 21 months time served, something like that. Even if he were to get 36, he's eligible for all kinds of other stuff. He's not going to do much more time.
So you think he'll get out? You think he'll get out within a year?
Oh yeah, he should. I think he'll be out within a year, 18 months at the most. I think there's a distinct possibility that he gets sentenced to something akin to time served.
Would you call Tenny and see if we can just talk to her by phone, just get a reaction?
Would I call her?
Yeah, like right now.
She's in the next room, and I'm on childcare duty because they're going to go celebrate.
Well, would she walk in for 2 minutes and just? We'd love to hear from her. She started.
His daughter was
Hold on,
one of the defense attorneys.
Come here for 1 second. Come here.
I see what's happening.
Come here.
I see what Harvey's doing.
Oh my God, Tenny, I'm not the evil
He's
dragon.
He's not going to ask you anything,
Jeez.
but I'm going to just.
I was gonna congratulate you on being pregnant. I was gonna congratulate you on winning.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
I feel great.
Was this? Did you expect this? I'm just so curious because
I see what you're doing.
Yeah,
well, no, I'm dying to know. I mean, this is all.
She said, "Hey, Teddy's smart." She said, "Run me my money, boy." You know what time it is. You want that exclusive interview? Run it up. All right. Shout out to Harvey. He says, "This is Clayton Howard, and guys, I've got the lawsuit, so we're gonna go over it here in a second. I was able to find it." He says Cassie manipulated him into taking ecstasy and having unprotected intercourse. And he says she would order him to pleasure himself for hours on end, resulting in tears, skin peeling, and scabbing of his genitals. What? Oh my. Howard claims his dealings with Diddy and Cassie left him with physical and psychological injury, lost wages and benefits, medical expenses, pain and suffering, emotional distress, and mental anguish, plus loss of enjoyment of life. Dang. He was not called as a witness, but was mentioned several times during testimony in Diddy's trial. A federal agent testified about Clayton's stay at the Four Seasons, a flight from New York to LA, all paid by Diddy. Wow. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys. I've got the document here. I was able to find it. Let's break it down. Let's see what Mr. Howard has to say in this. Oh my gosh. Man, this is a wild, crazy world that we live in. Let me go ahead and get this over here for y'all, and we'll get into it. We've got Clayton Howard. Who is he going up against? Hold on a second. There we go. Clayton Howard versus Sean Combs, Cassie Ventura, Bad Boy Records, Epic Records, Combs Enterprises, and Beverly Hills Hotel Corporation and Doe Corporation. 1 through 10. Interesting. So they're not named here. Trigger warning. This document contains highly graphic information, which I will be editing as much as I can. This is a family show of a sexual nature, including SA. Oh my. Plaintiff Clayton Howard, aka Dave, and Mr. Howard hereby alleges as for his complaint against the defendant Diddy and Cassie, Bad Boy Entertainment, and all them other folks as follows. Plaintiff Clayton Howard brings the civil action against defendants Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura arising from an 8-year period of systematic exploitation, trafficking, and abuse that occurred between approximately 2009 and 2019. This case exposes the darker truth behind the widely publicized narrative surrounding defendant Cassie's recent civil settlement and the ongoing criminal prosecution of defendant Combs. Diddy is a prominent rapper and record executive known by his stage name, Diddy, who rose to fame in early 1990s with his record label Bad Boy Records and is regularly referred to as a hip-hop mogul. Cassie, known professionally as Cassie, is a singer, actress, and model who gained prominence in the early 2000s with her single Me and You and appeared in films including The Perfect Match, Step It Up 2, The Streets. Defendants maintain a highly publicized romantic relationship from 2007 to 2018, during which both were toxic individuals addicted to opiates and methamphetamines, who had no regard for others or the law. Their relationship was characterized by sexually explicit, depraved activity categorized as swinging, with defendants Combs harboring a specific fetish for voyeurism. The relationship with the relationship was abusive, with Diddy frequently physically assaulting defendant Cassie in response to domestic incidents neither could emotionally control. The misleading public narrative. In late 2023, Cassie filed a civil action against Diddy pursuant to gender-motivated Violence Act, alleging that Combs manipulated, abused, and controlled her for over a decade through violent behavior and disturbing demands. She claimed to have spent over a decade trapped in a cycle of abuse, violence, and trafficking, including allegations that Combs, Diddy, forced her to engage in acts with male workers while he sat in the corner and pleasured himself and filmed the encounters. The parties settled this action within 24 hours for $20 million, and Mr. Howard wants a piece of that. Subsequently, the office of the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York arrested and indicted Diddy for trafficking and violations of the Mann Act, and with the prosecution's foundation based largely on defendant Cassie's allegations. Combs is currently faces trial on RICO charges. And again, guys, this was filed last week on Wednesday. So it was filed last Wednesday. All right, we have, contrary to the narrative presented in Cassie's civil complaint and subsequent criminal prosecution, the truth reveals a far more complex and disturbing reality. Defendant Cassie was not merely a victim forced into sexual encounters. Some of y'all ain't gonna like that. With male escorts, but rather an active and engaged participant who willingly manipulated and exploited others, including the plaintiff, to satisfy the sexually depraved desires of the defendant, Diddy, and herself. Oh my. For more than 8 years, defendant operated a scheme whereby they systematically exploited the plaintiff through manipulation, coercion, controlled substances, and threats of violence to engage in non-consensual activities, adult activities, for their gratification and commercial purposes. Cassie accomplished this exploitation by concealing her identity and fabricating the narrative that she and Diddy were married, using this deception to entice men into drug use and certain encounters. Defendants drugged the plaintiff with controlled substances, including MDMA, in doses 3 times stronger than what the defendant Cassie herself consumed, to lower his inhibitions and facilitate the exploitation. Defendant Cassie and these substances strategically, like a spider catching its prey in a web, to manipulate the plaintiff into unprotected intercourse designed to please Diddy and prove her devotion to his appetites. Oh my God. Cassie would command the plaintiff to pleasure himself for hours while she pleasured herself to climax, visibly satisfying herself at the sight of the plaintiff's anatomy. He's bigging himself up there. Hey, Clayton, do your thing, man. I ain't mad at it. These extended self-pleasuring sessions often left the plaintiff his genitals bruised and swollen, injuries about which he would complain to the Cassie about, seeking consideration. He'd be like, please don't make me do this. Oh man, these are adults, guys. But I guess power will do that to you. I don't know. Also, let me go ahead and say this for the record. I told you guys to keep the same energy. I'm keeping the same energy here. There's a reason this is coming out. Mr. Clayton's making this claim because Cassie, she just got a lot of money and Diddy still has a lot of money. So again, I believe innocent until proven guilty. We're going to see how this plays out. They might want to settle it though. However, defendant Cassie showed no mercy, simply demanding keep going compliance while pleasuring herself in the manner she hoped would satisfy Diddy, who derived satisfaction from watching her gratification through his voyeuristic desires. During these encounters, Diddy watched silently in the shadows, directing the activities as if he were a film director orchestrating his vision. Once Cassie was ready to begin, Diddy regulated her responses and controlled the rate of activity, exercising complete dominance over both the plaintiff and Cassie in what the couple considered a special shared experience. While Diddy appeared to serve as a protector rather than an oppressor, wow, he's giving Diddy some props, supporting Cassie's desires and catering to her with wine and fruit during encounters, his presence was deliberately intimidating as a part of his role in protecting his partner from the men they exploited. Threats of violence were implied when the defendant Combs, Diddy, wished to assert control, and during at least one encounter, he threatened to pistol whip the plaintiff, directing Cassie to the master suite to retrieve his firearm. Oh my goodness. At no time did Cassie display fear when engaged in or about to engage in encounters. He said she wanted it. All abuse witnessed by the plaintiff occurred due to domestic complications between the defendants, including jealousy, ego, and arrogance, aided by extensive drug use and sleep deprivation, which contributed to violent outbursts from Diddy, who consumed far more drugs than Cassie. Right now, we've got the assault and non-consensual recording. I can't be doing that. Over the years, the plaintiff was assaulted by the defendant Cassie, who would manipulate and force herself upon the plaintiff during her oh boy. I can do this. Over the years, the plaintiff was assaulted by Cassie, who would manipulate and force herself upon the plaintiff while she was on her period against his will. Hey, yo. Defendants filmed the plaintiff in compromising encounters without his consent for years, creating recordings that the couple would watch together after the encounters ended and use for mutual pleasuring. When the plaintiff confronted the defendant's Cassie, which, by the way, how does he know this? I want to know how he knows that. When the plaintiff confronted Cassie about the recordings and vocalized his desire not to be recorded, she explained that she enjoyed their relationship and provided her reasons for the recording. Cassie then opened her MacBook to a previous recording and then pleasured herself to climax in front of the plaintiff while watching an encounter involving the two of them, demonstrating the extent of her manipulation and control. She said, "See, this makes me feel so good." The victim becomes the victimizer. Oh my gosh. Does this sound like a victim to you? Commercial trafficking. For more than 5 years, the defendant trafficked plaintiff for purposes of commercial intercourse, using him as an entertainment to satisfy their certain fantasies and personal ambitions. The couple drugged, manipulated, and traumatized the plaintiff while themselves engaging in a toxic, domestically abusive relationship that often became violent. Cassie had a specific preference in selecting her companions and chose the plaintiff for 8 years. 8 years. 8 years. Just in case y'all didn't hear me. Over many other available options, as subsequent criminal trial proceedings have revealed. The allegations demonstrate that defendant Cassie deceived, manipulated, and injured plaintiff, and therefore should be held accountable alongside defendant Combs, as the two were partners in these criminal enterprises. That's what we've been saying. Diddy's a monster. Guess who else is a monster? Obstruction of justice and witness manipulation. Plaintiff's ability to seek timely legal recourse was deliberately frustrated through a coordinated effort involving his former counsel, who communicated with federal prosecutors without the plaintiff's presence. The plaintiff was advised to remain silent and was manipulated into inaction, with his attorneys intentionally delaying action to protect defendant Cassie's credibility. Oh, they were working with the feds. The plaintiff was specifically advised that he should file a complaint He would lose credibility before the court and therefore should refrain from doing so if he wished to do what was right and tell the truth. His counsel deceived, ignored, and misled him regarding the creation of the initial complaint against the defendants and when it would be filed. Hey, somebody needs to check on Mr. Clayton. He can't be shining a light on the feds like this. Make sure he's good. Despite serving as a complaint witness for the government and providing information that was later corroborated by investigators, thereby validating his credibility and the truthfulness of his statements. Federal prosecutors ultimately withheld the plaintiff's testimony despite its corroborative value and his valid allegations against both defendants. Hey, Mr. Clayton needs to be protected. Somebody make sure he's good. Denial of justice and present claims. For many years, the plaintiff has lived with this trauma in silence, forced to endure psychological and physical consequences with no visible venue for justice. While defendant Cassie's allegations have destroyed Diddy's career, she has escaped the liability by using allegations of abuse to avoid criminal responsibility for her own actions, thereby denying victims like the plaintiff the justice of which they are entitled. Wow. How dare this man hold Cassie accountable? He's a monster. It's disgusting. With the opening of legislation that granted survivors a look-back window to seek justice against offenders, the plaintiff learned he had been given a second chance to obtain the justice he deserved. The plaintiff has sought justice for over a year, only to be denied through the manipulation of legal professionals who wish to affect the criminal trial of Diddy. Wow. So Fed said, hey, y'all better chill on this. Like, we need Cassie to look a certain way. We need Cassie to appear credible. Our only chance at this case is if Cassie looks credible. Well, of course she got on the stand. She wasn't credible. And they told this man to wait. So the feds call up his attorneys and they say, y'all cannot bring this lawsuit. If you do that, there's going to be trouble. All right. We won't bring the lawsuit. Hey, Mr. Clayton. Sorry, you got to chill. We're going to wait on this. Just take some time. It'll be better for you. Just wait. And he's like, oh, okay. They're my attorneys. They have my best interests in mind. Yikes. I wonder if this can be proved. If it can, boy, y'all say a prayer for Mr. Howard. Mr. Howard was used and manipulated. Now, tired of the misconduct and incompetence, he has sought action himself and refuses to remain silent any longer in the face of this systemic exploitation, abuse, and attorney misconduct. All right. And then they cite some law here. We ain't going to get into all that. And of course, last but not least, he cites the parties. We know who the parties are. Obviously, the allegations. Mr. Howard, he meets Diddy and Cassie under fraudulent circumstances. Okay, so somebody lied here. Dave met Cassie in 2009. Cassie identified herself as Jackie Starr, invited Dave, or Mr. Howard, to the London hotel located in New York City to serve as a male companion, an escort, and provide her with time and company in the privacy of her hotel room for an agreed upon hourly rate. Here come the escort services, guys. We talked about it. Cassie attempted to conceal her identity through the use of makeup, a large red wig, and a dim lighting in the room, which created poor visual conditions. Cassie failed to inform Mr. Howard prior to the meeting that another party would be present, aka Diddy. Immediately after greeting Mr. Howard, Cassie offered him alcohol and marijuana cigarette, then instructed him to be seated in the living room. The two parties spoke for approximately 30 minutes while becoming familiar and relaxed. After approximately 30 minutes, Cassie asked to see the personal identification of Mr. Howard for safety purposes so she would, quote, know who he really was. Having nothing to hide and wanting to make a woman he assumed was alone comfortable, he provided Cassie with his driver's license revealing his true identity. Got him. Cassie informed Mr. Howard of her intentions by standing and requesting that he expose his genitals. Under the influence of the substances provided, Mr. Howard agreed to Cassie's request, and she claimed to be impressed.
Hey, yo.
ClassE then informed Mr. Howard that they were not alone and that her husband was upstairs, but assured him that the situation was acceptable because her husband had consented to her having a male companion visit to where things might lead. Miss Ventura, Cassie, explained that she and her husband were participants in the lifestyle and that her husband preferred to watch her be pleasured by men with large male reproductive organs. Oh, man. Cassie stated that she preferred men with darker complexions, complimenting Mr. Howard's complexion before excusing herself to retrieve her husband so that the activities could begin. Cassie retrieved Diddy, whom she introduced as her husband and presented to Mr. Howard under the alias Frank, as if he didn't know who Diddy was. Diddy greeted Mr. Howard with indifference, then retrieved baby oil and Astroglide lubricant, both of which had been positioned on a platter in the center of the table. Diddy then retreated to a darkened corner of the room where poor lighting made it difficult to observe his movements clearly. Mr. Howard was instructed not to address Diddy directly and to speak only to Cassie. You're gonna ruin the mood, man. Don't talk to me. Don't ask me if I'm doing a good job. Just focus on her. I'll tell Cassie what to do. Don't even look at me, dude. Like, come on. That's not how this works. Diddy concealed his identity by wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyebrows, a cloth tied around his nose and mouth. There we go, which obstructed his facial features and made him unrecognizable. When Mr. Combs did speak, it was to inquire whether Cassie was acceptable or if she needed anything. Diddy also provided direction for both Mr. Howard and Cassie, regulating the pace of their physical contact, and will be further explained in subsequent paragraphs. Oh. Hey, listen, I went down this rabbit hole. I guess we got to do it. The first encounter and the structure of activities. The first encounter served as the plaintiff's initial education into what would be required of him by the defendants, with all subsequent encounters following an identical structure that forms the basis for the deception of all encounters described hereafter within this complaint. During each encounter, Mr. Howard had no autonomy. He was required to follow orders and was expected not to disobey. Financial compensation was used as a form of dominance once Mr. Howard committed to any activity within the encounter. Why'd you go back, Mr. Howard? For 8 years. Mr. Howard was instructed by Cassie to remove all his clothing upon entry into the suite and to surrender his clothing and phones to Cassie. Mr. Howard's cell phone was turned off and surrendered with his clothing to Cassie, which prevented him from leaving by choice without compromising his safety. Some suites required keys to access the floors and had no access to stairwells without triggering alarms, making escape difficult. They held him against his will. Mr. Howard, allegedly. Mr. Howard was instructed by Cassie to apply baby oil to his naked body. When Mr. Howard applied the oil to his hand and began to distribute it evenly, Cassie would use her own bottle to saturate Mr. Howard's chest, abdomen, arms with the oil before stepping closer and attempting to apply it evenly herself. Cassie often sprayed Mr. Howard with oil during application to make distribution over the skin easier. The defendant structured the encounters into 4 phases: non-touch, soft foreplay, fellatio, and number 4, intercourse, which were directed by Diddy for the purposes of controlling Cassie's arousal and timing of the climax. During these phases, Mr. Howard had no input or ability to offer suggestions and was simply expected to comply. Through the use of manipulation and financial coercion, Mr. Howard would remain in these phases for hours, with each individual stage lasting for over an hour. Oof. I'm almost at the point where I say this poor man, but hey, Do your job, brother. You got paid. Cassie controlled the start of the activity and would seek Diddy's permission regarding when she could progress to the next stage. If Diddy was not ready, he would refuse permission, but he often granted Cassie permission to pleasure herself if she requested. Once the activity began, Diddy controlled the progression and pace, seeking to control Cassie's desire while pleasuring himself rather than directly participating. These prolonged self-pleasuring sessions frequently caused skin tears and scabs to Mr. Howard's genitals, causing him severe pain and scarring. While Mr. Howard stood covered in baby oil, Cassie and Diddy would pleasure themselves while watching him, which gave him a constant feeling of uneasiness and uncertainty. While Mr. Howard was ordered to stand naked, both defendants would pleasure themselves to the point of climax. Both defendants would be intoxicated using substances and alcohol to alter their moods and keep them awake. Some of these substances were Schedule I narcotics, including amphetamines and opiates. The specific drugs used, including ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, cocaine, MDMA, Molly, and marijuana. Cassie, in the earlier and middle years, was extremely physical with Mr. Howard and would. Grace, get out of here. Grace, what are you doing in here? Oh my gosh. Cassie, in the earlier and middle years, was extremely physical with Mr. Howard and would. Amy, get Grace in here. And would orally pleasure him for periods exceeding 1 hour at times. Dehydrated from drugs, lack of water, and constant engagement in oral pleasure, Cassie would often perform orally until she had to stop. Her jaw became sore from prolonged activity. When intercourse was to occur, Cassie's arousal would be so heightened that she would often beg Diddy to allow her to engage. Mr. Howard was directed to engage in contact with Cassie until she climaxed and was only allowed to stop once Cassie reached climax. Once Diddy consented to the sexual contact, Cassie controlled the degree of intimacy, including kissing, the intensity of the kissing, and whether she would engage in unprotected intercourse, as will be described in later paragraphs. No, I don't know how much longer we can do this. That's probably not a great statement to make considering the topic. Once the climax of Cassie occurred, the cycle would be repeated. One encounter with Cassie could consist of 15 to 30 individual sessions, each including all 4 stages. The number of sessions also depended on the number of days Mr. Howard would be detained. Interesting use of words there. Until the defendants were ready to return his phone and clothing and release him. If Mr. Howard attempted to leave, he would be coerced by Mrs. Ventura, Cassie, into waiting or ignored if he knocked on the suite's master bedroom door seeking to retrieve his items to leave. Wow. How y'all feel about this? Are y'all gonna keep the same energy? Hey, all you big anti-Diddy folks, I want to see you guys cover this. You know who you are. Y'all can say their names in the comments in the chat if you want to. I'm calling you guys out, or you women out specifically. I want to see y'all cover this. Again, I'm going to stay consistent. I'm going to stay objective. A lot of these civil cases I've seen, they're money grabs. They're BS. They don't make sense. But now that we've seen the Diddy trial, we've seen all the things y'all have said about how much of a monster Diddy is. Are you going to take this as face value? Or is it because the tables aren't turned and because it's a woman who's allegedly the aggressor and it's a man that's a victim? Are things different? I want to know what y'all think about this in the comments and in the chat.